every now and then, a single battlefield action reveals far more than the explosion we see on the screen. It exposes the deeper logic of a war, the motivations of states, and the dangerous trajectory of great power politics. Today's incident, a Ukrainian drone strike targeting Russian helicopters, is not just a tactical event. It is a window into the broader strategic landscape that has defined the Russia-Ukraine conflict from the very beginning. The Ukrainian drone strike on Russian helicopters exemplifies a profound shift in modern warfare, where technology increasingly allows smaller states to challenge larger, conventionally stronger adversaries. Drones, once considered supplementary reconnaissance tools, have now become offensive instruments capable of shaping the battlefield in decisive ways. In this particular strike, Ukraine leveraged relatively low-cost unmanned aerial vehicles to target highly valuable Russian military assets, demonstrating an ability to inflict tangible damage without committing large numbers of troops. This capability introduces a layer of unpredictability for Russian forces, forcing them to operate under constant threat even far behind the front lines. The strategic logic behind Ukraine's use of drones is clear when direct confrontation with a superior military force carries prohibitive risk. Asymmetric approaches become essential. By striking helicopters, which are central to mobility, firepower, and logistics, Ukraine effectively imposes operational constraints on Russia, disrupting supply lines, troop movements, and reconnaissance efforts. Each successful strike serves a dual purpose. Not only does it degrade Russia's capabilities, but it also sends a psychological message that no asset is completely safe, amplifying caution and slowing operational tempo. Moreover, the success of drone operations reveals how modern technology can level the playing field. Precision targeting allows for surgical strikes with minimal collateral damage, a factor that enhances political and strategic leverage. It also underscores a broader trend in contemporary conflicts. Warfare is no longer determined solely by sheer numbers or heavy weaponry, but by innovation, adaptability, and the ability to exploit vulnerabilities in an opponent's system. The Ukrainian drone strike is a compelling example of this principle in action, illustrating that strategic ingenuity can, at times, offset conventional disadvantages and reshape the calculus of power on the battlefield. The Ukrainian drone strike on Russian helicopters creates significant operational challenges for Moscow, highlighting the vulnerability of even the most advanced air assets in a high-intensity conflict. Helicopters, which serve as critical tools for troop transport, close air support, and rapid logistical deployment, are now forced to operate under constant threat, drastically altering Russian tactical planning. Each strike compels Russian forces to rethink the way they position and protect their aircraft, forcing dispersion across multiple locations and the construction of additional hardened shelters or camouflaged bases. This diffusion not only stretches resources but also slows the pace at which Russian forces can respond to battlefield developments, creating openings for Ukrainian countermeasures and limiting operational flexibility. The psychological impact of these attacks is equally significant. Pilots and support crews must now contend with the knowledge that their assets can be targeted remotely and unpredictably, adding stress that can erode effectiveness over time. The disruption to Russian air power is compounded by the need to invest heavily in counter-drone technologies, electronic warfare systems, and continuous surveillance, all of which divert funds and focus from other strategic priorities. Each helicopter taken out of operation, even temporarily, has cascading effects on reconnaissance, mobility, and supply lines, forcing commanders to adapt constantly in a highly fluid environment. This vulnerability also exposes a broader strategic dilemma for Moscow. In a war increasingly defined by technological innovation and asymmetric tactics, traditional superiority in air power no longer guarantees battlefield dominance. Russian forces are compelled to adjust their doctrine, invest in defensive measures, and accept operational constraints that Ukraine exploits to maintain pressure. The drone strike demonstrates that even highly capable military forces are not immune to disruption when their assets are exposed to persistent, precise, and cost-effective attacks, fundamentally altering the dynamics of engagement and forcing a recalibration of strategic priorities. The Ukrainian drone strike on Russian helicopters is emblematic of the ongoing escalation in a conflict increasingly defined by attritional warfare, where each side seeks to gradually degrade the other's operational capabilities. In such a war, small tactical victories can carry strategic weight, and precision strikes on high-value targets like helicopters serve as force multipliers. By systematically undermining Russia's mobility and aerial support, Ukraine is not only inflicting immediate damage, but also shaping the operational environment in ways that constrain Russian decision-making. Every helicopter taken out of action slows troop movements, limits air cover for frontline units, and forces Moscow to reconsider how it allocates critical resources across multiple theaters of conflict. This pattern of incremental escalation reveals a deeper logic in a protracted confrontation. Both sides are locked in a cycle of action and reaction. Each new attack prompts countermeasures, leading to further investments in defense and security, which in turn create opportunities for additional offensive operations. Ukrainian drone strikes exploit this dynamic effectively, leveraging speed, surprise, and precision to create cumulative effects over time. The psychological dimension of attrition is equally important, as Russian forces must operate under constant threat, knowing that their assets, once considered relatively secure, are increasingly vulnerable to remote, low-cost attacks. The broader implication is clear: modern warfare allows even a smaller state to escalate strategically without direct massed engagement. Drone strikes, artillery raids, and other targeted operations can gradually shift the balance of power, forcing the adversary to disperse forces, invest in defensive systems, and accept operational limitations. In this context, the Ukrainian strike on Russian helicopters is more than a single tactical success. It is a calculated step in a larger strategy aimed at wearing down the opponent, imposing costs, and exploiting vulnerabilities in a conflict that shows no sign of slowing. The Ukrainian drone strike on Russian helicopters carries far-reaching geopolitical implications that extend well beyond the immediate battlefield. Each successful attack reverberates through the strategic calculations of not only Russia and Ukraine, but also their international backers, highlighting how localized military actions can influence the broader balance of power in Europe. For Moscow, such strikes underscore the persistent vulnerabilities of its military forces and the need to reassess defensive postures, which in turn may affect Russia's decision-making on resource allocation, strategic priorities, and even diplomatic maneuvers. For Kiev and its Western supporters, these operations demonstrate the effectiveness of combining innovative technology with strategic intent, signaling that even in an asymmetrical conflict, significant leverage can be gained without large-scale confrontation. The strike also illuminates the evolving role of technology in shaping geopolitical outcomes. Drones and other precision systems allow Ukraine to challenge a militarily superior opponent while maintaining a degree of deniability and minimizing direct exposure. This recalibrates traditional assumptions about power projection. It is no longer sufficient for a state to rely solely on conventional strength. Instead, resilience, adaptability, and the ability to exploit vulnerabilities have become central determinants of influence in modern conflicts. As these technologies proliferate, they create ripple effects across alliances and security arrangements, compelling NATO members and other stakeholders to consider both defensive and offensive implications in their strategic planning. Perhaps most significantly, these strikes emphasize the interconnectedness of military actions and political signaling. Each successful operation communicates resolve, capability, and a willingness to challenge the status quo, influencing perceptions of credibility and deterrence among allies and adversaries alike. In this sense, the Ukrainian drone strike on Russian helicopters is more than a tactical maneuver. It is a statement about the shifting dynamics of power, the fragility of perceived military dominance, and the increasingly complex interplay between battlefield actions and international geopolitical strategy.